Got to work, okay. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, my name is Michelle and I do all things makeup related. In today's video, we are going to be doing another book look. This is something on my channel that I do where I read a book and then do a book review on it, as well as while doing my makeup that kind of either resembles a makeup look in the book or just something that has to do with the time period. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, please do follow this playlist and subscribe to my channel if you want to. The book I read for today's video is called H2O by Virginia Bergin, and this is actually in a series of 2 books. The Storm is the next one, which I will be doing in my video after this. I'm going to be doing my makeup, I'm not quite sure how. In the book, it is from the perspective of a 16-year-old, and for some reason, she just prioritizes putting on makeup. So I'm just gonna do makeup in a way that a 16-year-old might. I have no idea. So this book, it takes place in England near London, and it starts out with the main character whose point of view it's from. Her name is Ruby. She's 16 and she is having a blast at one of her friends' house. It's like kind of the first day of summer, not really, but like the first day of good weather and where everybody is out grilling, and friends' parents are out at a party for one of their friends. So they kind of have the house all to themselves. So there may be a little bit of drinking, and it's all very kind of materialistic in her point of view. And while she's there, all of a sudden her friend's parents come home and they force everybody inside, and they're very hectic, and these are not really people to be hectic. So that kind of puts Ruby on edge, like, why are they freaking out? They're usually pretty laid back. So everybody's gathered inside. The mom starts making some tea for them all, and the dad turns on the TV. Actually, I don't think he turned the news on. I think what happened was the dad comes home and he says, they said this, and the they that they're referring to is his family is like really rich, and they would have like upper people in like the government that would be able to tell them these things to go home and be safe and all of this stuff. And all you hear is the rain starting outside and the TV saying it's in the rain. And it kind of goes into detail about saying that the rain is poisonous. So they don't really understand what's happening. And Ruby's like boyfriend person, he goes out with a towel over his head to grab his phone or shoes or something. And so when he comes back, he's like, no, it's fine. I had my towel over me. Like, I didn't get any water on me. I'm fine. Now they're all gathered around and about to drink some tea when the boyfriend dude starts like spasming and scratching himself all over. And the mom immediately gets super worried, and the dad was like, nobody touch him, nobody go near him, he went outside, like he has whatever it is. So the mom is still very concerned, and so she decides that she's going to take him to the hospital. And they have a carport that goes like straight from their house, so it's not like she would have gotten hit by the rain at all. So she takes him into her car, and Ruby is like, well, that's my boyfriend dude, so I'm gonna go with you, like screw just sitting here. So she goes in the car with them, and as they're driving towards the hospital, they start noticing a lot of traffic and a lot of congestion. And immediately they think, oh, everybody else is bringing their sick loved ones to the hospital too. So there's no way into the hospital. There's no way into even parking close to the hospital, and it's still pouring down rain. So the mom turns around and she's trying to think of like, where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go? And she starts scratching at her hand, which Ruby didn't notice at first, but the mom is obviously concerned for herself. So she asks Ruby, where do you want to go? And Ruby said, home. Just bring me home. I don't know what's happening. This is scary. The boyfriend dude is spasming in the back. So by the time that Ruby arrives home, the rain has stopped. So she's able to get out of the car, but the mom says, make sure you don't touch the door because the door has the water on it and all this stuff. So Ruby goes up to her front door and she's knocking on it a lot. And she's asking for her mom and Simon, who's her stepdad, who she doesn't really get along with that well. He's very much of a rule follower and she's very much a wannabe popular person. So they like wouldn't let her in at first, but she kept insisting, I'm not sick, I didn't have the rain touch me, I'm okay. And she goes in there and was like really happy to see them home and alive because they had been at a barbecue. And turns out that they came home early from it. So they let her in, but they don't touch her, and they let her into the like den, the front room den area, and lock her in there because they just, you know, you don't know how long it's lasting. You don't know if it's contagious. So they were all just doing this for precautions, and they gave her like a bucket to go to the bathroom in. So she's trying to talk to them through the door and all this stuff, trying to say, I'm not sick. I didn't get hit by water. Like I'm perfectly fine. I'm sane, like all of this stuff. So she has to spend the night in that front room there, and she starts to hear the rain come again. Probably like an hour after this happened, maybe a little while after this happens, she hears someone banging on the front door, and turns out it's one of her neighbors. And her stepdad, you know, is blocking the front door, saying like the mom can't go out there. Like, no, you can't go out there. You can't talk to this girl. Like, she's clearly hit by the rain and she clearly is sick. So we just can't risk that. So the neighbor woman is just freaking out, and she's kind of like running around their front yard. She can't help but watch it. She doesn't want to, and she knows it's scary. She knows she feels scared, but she watches it anyway. And she notices that their medical box is flown out of a window from the top floor of their house. Not that that medical box would have helped at all, but eventually she finally falls asleep and goes to bed and tries to drown out all of the bad, scary images and scary things that may have happened. So when she wakes up, Simon lets her out, and he brings her to the kitchen where he has buckets of water everywhere. He turned off the water and emptied all the taps into these buckets because he doesn't know what's safe or not. So just in case it is safe, he's going to leave it. But then he goes through all of the rules, like you can't turn on the tap, you can't wash your hands, you can't take a shower, you can't do all of these things because they include water, which if you think about it, is super important in like daily lives. Like you can't survive without water. So that's really just crazy. So as Simon is going through these rules, the last one he tells her is to think for yourself, think about yourself, think about the actions that you're doing to see if maybe, you know, they could result in something bad. She keeps asking, where's mom? Where's mom? Where's mom? And his response is think. And so she finally remembers the night before with the little medical box being thrown out of the window, and she realizes her mom must have been hit by the water. So she runs upstairs into the bedroom, and Simon holds her back before she can even touch her mom. But there's her mom and her little baby brother, both had the sickness. So obviously she and Simon are both torn up about it. They close the door and no one goes in there, and they all just kind of camp out, or both of them kind of camp out in the living room watching the TV, where it's just the same news report over and over and over again. And finally they kind of run out of enough resources and food that they have to leave. So they are wearing a bunch of rain gear. It is a clear day, but they're wearing it anyway, and they go out and try to head to the supermarket that's nearby. So when they get in there, there's a family in the back that has like a pit bull, and the dad is holding this huge gun, and everybody else of the family is going and gathering all of the food. So clearly they're kind of dominating the area, and they've already seen that a bunch of survival foods and water and everything is pretty much already all gone. So Ruby and Simon are kind of looking around thinking, what do we do? Like, where do we get water? We have to leave because they're dangerous here. And Ruby just thinks, hey, you know, mom and Henry, who is the baby, you know, they like flowers, so let's go ahead and leave them flowers at the door. So they go to the florist area, which hasn't been touched, because who's actually thinking about getting flowers in this crazy apocalypse? And as they're grabbing it, Simon realizes that there's water in there, and that no one would have changed the water, so that water must still be good water. Granted, it's been sitting there with flowers in it, but they grab them, and on their way out, they see that it's almost going to start to rain. So they run into one of these parked cars and wait it out there while they're drinking their nasty flower water. And sure enough, it starts to rain, and everybody in the building is trying to run out. It's chaos. Everybody's getting sick again, and it really traumatizes Ruby. Being in that car, seeing all those people, hearing them all, and some people are like banging on the window trying to get in, and she can't let them in. So that was quite traumatizing for her. And throughout the rest of the book, she does not want to spend the night in a car. She doesn't want to be trapped in a car ever again. So when they go back home, they still realize, you know, we yeah, we got some water, nasty flower water, but we do definitely need more. So they go and they're searching around their neighbors' houses, and Ruby always says, like, we still have to knock. We still have to make sure no one's home. No one's gonna like be, angry that we're coming into their home. So that's what they do, and none of their neighbors answer. None of their neighbors are home. They do find some of their neighbors dead, which traumatizes Ruby, but they did find a couple of water. Water bottles, a couple of cans of food, and things to survive on. Finally, they come to this big mansion that's at the end of their street. And they're like, oh, these people, like, they have to have something, right? So they go in without knocking this time. And sure enough, the people who live there are, dead. Simon and Ruby just kind of start looking around, trying to find a place that might have some water or some other stuff. And Ruby she sees a cat, and so she goes to give the cat some water, but she realizes that the bottle that she's about to open has already been opened and drunk from, and must have been bad water that these people have died from. So she puts it back, and before she can do anything, Simon reaches for it and drinks it, and immediately kind of realizes that it's bad water and kind of starts choking on it. And so he kind of runs out of the house, and as Ruby's going to follow him, there's this man there in the house with this like smirk on his face, and he's petting his cat, and he knows what he did. He knows that that was like poisoned water and all that. Now, like, she knows that there's someone menacing in that house near where she lives, and that Simon is most likely going to die. So they run home, and Simon locks himself up in the room with Ruby's mom and baby brother and dies. So Ruby's now left on her own and is terrified, doesn't know how to survive, and she just kind of, definitely has the survival instincts of a 16-year-old, which I'm sure that there are a lot of really smart 16-year-olds out there, but Ruby is not really one of them. She goes to the mall and she buys a bunch of makeup, and she buys a bunch of clothes that she could never buy before that are like usually out of her price range. So once she gets home with all of her crazy goodies of clothes and whatnot, she realizes, so her biological father lives in London, and she wants to go find him. She doesn't care if he's alive or not, she's going to go find him. So she starts to pack up the car, but she's not really packing up food and water. She's packing up the clothes and makeup, which she kind of, in her narrative of all this, she realizes that, like, yeah, that wasn't the smartest idea, but that's what she does anyway. During her excursions out on the town buying these things, she goes by the police office and realizes there's all of those people still in jail, and they're yelling, trying to ask for help to get out. She tries to, but she's alone, and so she doesn't know what to do, and all of a sudden there's this boy and this girl in garbage bags, and she realizes the boy was in her grade, and he was kind of like a loser that she would never talk to. So they both let all of these prisoners out, and Darius, who's the kid, says, hey, come hang out with us. We're over at the school. And she was like, the school? No, I'm not going back to school. Are you kidding me? Like, why would you go there? So when she goes to finally leave for her father's, the scary old man with the cat comes up to her and is trying to like talk to her about something, and she is not having it. So she actually she goes into her house and grabs that bucket that she used in the front room for going to the bathroom, and she throws that at him and then is able to escape in the car. So before she even leaves her hometown, she stops by the school to go pick up Darius and that little girl in the garbage bag. The little girl doesn't talk. It looked like she was kind of in some sort of like car accident before all of this happened or something. So it's just kind of presumed that she doesn't talk because of trauma, which is a fair, assumption. So they all now go on this excursion to London. So as they're driving around a lot, they really get to know each other a little bit more. And while Ruby still doesn't like him, she's just kind of warming up to the idea of him and hanging out with him. She's the one who's driving because he has epilepsy and is really scared that he will crash the car if he drives. So she's the one who's driving. His blush looks really bad, but it kind of represents what I would imagine Ruby looks like. So while they're on the road, there's a car that passes them, but kind of slows down at the same time, trying to get their attention, to get them to pull over. So, Darius and Ruby decide to pull over, and they do, and there's this family in there, and they, want to take care of them, and they say, we're going to I don't remember, some town where there's a church there where the military will be helping people, and it's this community of survivors. So that's where they were going to head, and that's where Ruby and Darius were going to follow them. Well, it turns out before they even get there, there's a military roadblock. So the family and Darius and the little girl go with the military, but Ruby is dead set on finding her father. So she runs out of their reach into the woods and finds her way to a car and finds her way to London. So on her way to London, she finally gets to London and gets to her dad's apartment, but it looks like someone was there, but he left. Like, he survived and he was able to leave, and she knows that the first place he would go would be to go see her. So she decides that London is a dead end and she's going to try that other military base and see if her father's waiting for her there. So she shows up. Oh my god, that looks terrible. So that eyeliner looks terrible, but you know, again, emulating Ruby. So she gets there and the military's there and they're, you know, questioning people, and they all have to go through some sort of process, and they ask you like, who have you been in contact with, and all of these other questions that Ruby just kind of says no to all of them and just makes her way through there. And eventually she gets on a bus that's waiting there for probably 3 hours, and she's waiting on that bus trying to get more people on, and they end up just leaving with a fairly empty, maybe like halfway full bus. As they're kind of going through as the bus is going through the military base, she makes the bus stop because she spots Darius. They reluctantly let her off of the bus to go talk to him, and she says hi to him, and with him is Saskia, who is basically her enemy in high school. And Saskia's there hanging out with Darius, and Ruby's not allowed to go in or stay with them. So Ruby gets really mad and kind of figures out that she likes Darius and is kind of jealous that he and Saskia are now kind of together. So she gets back on the bus, again, kind of reluctantly, but whatever. And the bus takes them out of the military compound and then just kind of dumps them in the middle of a empty neighborhood and says, sorry, we're full at the time, we can't take you guys with us. And they all find out that it's because they're useless, because they don't have anything that they can really contribute to society. There's nothing super special about them. So Ruby drives a couple of them back to that church that she heard was supposed to have these survivors. And there's a whole community there. So she drops them off there and she's like, no, I have to go home. Like, my dad wasn't at the military, he has to be at my house. So she goes back home, and sure enough, there's a note there waiting for her saying that he showed up. He's like, where are you? We're going to go get grandma, but we'll be back for you. So she decides that she's going to wait at home, and that's kind of where the book ends. So I had a lot of questions at the end. Does she ever see Darius and Saskia again? What happened to the little girl that was in that garbage bag? She's wearing a garbage bag, she's not in a garbage bag. Is her father still alive? And then who is that scary old man? And what did he want to talk to her about? Because he just kind of disappeared at the end. So overall, I think it was a very interesting book. I really do enjoy apocalypse type style stories. And I just think it was an odd point of view from a 16-year-old in an apocalypse who favors makeup and clothes. But I mean, I guess I kind of see, you know, this is a YA novel, so that makes sense. They also have the swear words are blotted out with a butterfly because Ruby is writing this and she knows her mom doesn't like her swearing. So for respect for her mom, she puts a butterfly in front of all swear words, which kind of gets annoying at first, but I mean, you get used to it. So I really did like the book, but I'm excited to continue reading and reading the second one and doing my review of that book. So stay tuned for that video coming later. But let me know in the comments down below of what you think of this book, if you've read it before or if you're just listening to my recap of it. During an apocalypse, would you go and try on a bunch of clothes and makeup, or would you kind of try to find as much healthy, safe water? I feel like that's just important. Anyway, that's all I have for this video, and I will see you in the next one. So shout out to you, Hannah. Hey. No, I don't think that's right.